Sterile millionaire husband called her stupid in front of everyone at the Christmas party, but she. The doorbell rang downstairs. Guests were arriving for what Robert believed would be another successful evening of networking and social climbing. Monica took one last look at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the same person who'd found that first receipt 3 weeks ago. Have you ever discovered that your entire relationship was built on lies? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. The champagne glass hit the marble floor like a gunshot as Monica Sinclair walked away from the most humiliating moment of her life. But what her husband didn't know was that she'd been planning this night for months. Hidden in his private safe were documents that would destroy everything he'd built, and she had the combination. What would you do if your spouse humiliated you in front of 200 people? Have you ever felt invisible in your own marriage? Have you been underestimated because of who you are? Tonight, we're diving into a story about a woman who turned public humiliation into private revolution. Stay with me to discover how Monica Sinclair went from victim to victor in one Christmas night. Hit that subscribe button because this story will change how you think about power in relationships. Because instead of breaking down, Monica calmly placed her glass on the table and smiled. Her silence was louder than any scream. Then she excused herself, but not before whispering something into Robert's ear that made his face drain of color. What she discovered in that safe wasn't just about business, it was about his biggest lie, the truth he'd worked his entire life to bury. She practiced her smile in the mirror 43 times before the party, knowing tonight would be the last time she'd ever have to fake it. Monica Sinclair stood in her walk-in closet, surrounded by designer dresses that felt more like costumes than clothes. Each gown hung perfectly pressed, waiting for another performance as the devoted wife. But tonight was different. Tonight, the red velvet dress she chose would witness the end of her 20-year marriage. The Greenwich mansion glowed with Christmas lights, every window perfectly decorated, every room ready for Connecticut's social elite. Robert had spent weeks planning this party, micromanaging every detail from the champagne selection to the flower arrangements. He needed everything perfect for his business partners, his investors, his reputation. What he didn't need was a wife who knew too much. 3 weeks ago, Monica had been doing laundry when she found the receipt. Hotel charges. Restaurant bills for 2. Credit card statements showing expenses that didn't match Robert's business trips. At first, she thought it was a mistake. After all, successful real estate developers like Robert had complicated finances. But the dates told a different story. December 3rd, dinner for 2 at Le Bernardin while Robert claimed to be in Boston. December 8th, weekend at the Ritz-Carlton while he said he was visiting his mother. December 12th, jewelry purchase for $3,000 while Monica's Christmas gift sat unwrapped in their bedroom, a cookbook. Her accounting background kicked in. Numbers didn't lie, even when husbands did. She created a spreadsheet, tracking every suspicious charge, every unexplained absence, every time Robert came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. The pattern stretched back 2 years. But the real discovery came when she found his second phone. Hidden in his home office, tucked behind law books he never read, the device buzzed with messages from women whose names she didn't recognize. Lisa from the country club. Jennifer from his real estate office. Maria from God knows where. Each conversation more intimate than any words Robert had spoken to her in months. Can't wait to see you tonight, read one message. Tell your wife you're working late again, said another. The most recent one made her stomach turn. The diamond earrings are beautiful. When are you leaving her? Monica had sat in Robert's leather chair, reading messages that confirmed what her heart already knew. Her marriage was a performance, and she was the only one who didn't know the show was over. But Robert had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated the woman he'd been lying to. That night, she'd watched him come home, kiss her cheek, and ask about her day like he actually cared. She'd served him dinner, listened to his fabricated stories about client meetings, and smiled when he complained about being tired from working so hard. All while knowing he'd spent the afternoon with Jennifer, planning a weekend getaway funded by their joint account. Now, adjusting her earrings in the mirror, Monica felt something she hadn't experienced in years: power. Robert thought he was married to a naive woman who would never question him, never investigate, never fight back. Tonight, he would learn how wrong he was. Have you ever discovered that your entire relationship was built on lies? Tell me in the comments how you survived that moment when everything you believed crumbled. The doorbell rang downstairs. Guests were arriving for what Robert believed would be another successful evening of networking and social climbing. Monica took one last look at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the same person who'd found that first receipt 3 weeks ago. As she walked downstairs to join the party, Monica tucked the safe combination deeper into her purse. Robert had no idea his wife knew about the secret compartment, or what she planned to do with its contents. The moment Robert called her stupid in front of everyone, Monica felt something inside her die, and something else come alive. The ballroom buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses. 200 of Connecticut's wealthiest residents mingled under crystal chandeliers, their designer clothes and practiced smiles creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Monica moved through the crowd like she'd done dozens of times before, accepting compliments on her dress, her home, her husband's success. "Monica, darling, this party is absolutely divine," gushed Patricia Whitmore, the mayor's wife. "Robert certainly knows how to entertain." "Thank you," Monica replied, her southern accent softening the words. Even after 20 years in Connecticut, her Atlanta roots colored every sentence, a fact that Robert's friends never let her forget. The evening progressed smoothly until Robert decided to make his speech. He stood near the grand staircase, champagne glass raised, commanding attention with the confidence of a man who'd never been challenged. The crowd gathered around him, faces turned upward like flowers following the sun. "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert began, his voice carrying across the room. "Thank you for joining Monica and me tonight. As we celebrate another successful year, I want to toast the people who make my achievements possible." Monica smiled dutifully from her position near the kitchen door, expecting the usual thanks to his business partners, maybe a mention of her role as hostess. Instead, Robert's next words hit her like ice water. "Of course, we all know that behind every successful man is a woman trying to figure out how to give a proper toast." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "My dear Monica here still doesn't understand that you're supposed to lift the glass before speaking, not after. Isn't that right, sweetheart?" The room fell silent for a heartbeat before nervous chuckles filled the space. Monica felt every eye turn toward her, measuring her reaction, waiting to see how the simple Southern girl would handle being publicly corrected by her sophisticated husband. Heat flooded her cheeks, but not from embarrassment. From rage. Pure, crystalline fury that sharpened her vision and steadied her hands. This wasn't the first time Robert had humiliated her in public, but it would definitely be the last. Monica set her champagne glass on a nearby table with deliberate care. The soft clink seemed to echo in the sudden quiet. She walked toward Robert, her red heels clicking against marble floors, her smile never wavering. "You're absolutely right, darling," she said, her voice carrying just enough volume for everyone to hear. "I'm still learning so many things." She reached up and kissed his cheek, the gesture appearing affectionate to their guests. But as her lips brushed his skin, she whispered words that only he could hear, like how to access your private safe. "Sleep well tonight, Robert." His face drained of color so quickly that several guests stepped forward, concerned he might be having a medical emergency. Monica maintained her smile, patted his arm gently, and addressed their audience. "Please excuse me, everyone. I need to powder my nose before we serve dessert. What's the worst public humiliation you've witnessed in a relationship? How did it change everything that came after? Share your thoughts below because what happens next will shock you." While Robert stumbled through the rest of his speech, trying to regain his composure, Monica disappeared upstairs. She had exactly 30 minutes before anyone would notice her absence, 30 minutes to access 20 years of lies. Some marriages end with arguments. Others end with safe combinations and hidden medical records. Monica slipped into Robert's private study, her heart hammering against her ribs. The room smelled like leather and expensive cologne, furnished with the kind of antique pieces that screamed old money, even though Robert had earned every penny himself. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes he'd bought for appearances but never read. Behind his mahogany desk hung a painting of a hunting scene, complete with horses and hounds. Monica had always hated it, but Robert insisted it gave the room character. What she'd discovered 3 days ago was that it also hid a wall safe. Her fingers trembled as she moved the painting aside, revealing the digital keypad. Robert's birthday? Too obvious. Their wedding anniversary? He'd probably forgotten it himself. Then she remembered the numbers she'd found written in his appointment book, April 15, 1987. The date he'd bought his first property, the foundation of his real estate empire. Of course Robert would use the day his business was born as his password. The safe clicked open. Monica's breath caught as she saw the contents. Stacks of cash, several jewelry boxes she'd never seen before, and a thick manila folder labeled, Personal, Confidential. Her hands shook as she pulled out the documents. The first papers made her stomach drop. Medical records from a fertility clinic in Manhattan, dated 5 years ago. Robert's name at the top, diagnosis clearly stated, severe oligospermia with secondary infertility. Pregnancy probability, less than 2%. For 5 years, Robert had blamed her for their inability to have children. He'd insisted she see specialists, undergo painful tests, take hormones that made her sick and emotional. All while knowing he was the reason their marriage bed remained empty. The cruelty took her breath away. The next folder contained financial statements for accounts she'd never heard of. A separate checking account with over $200,000 in transactions. Hotel bills, restaurant charges, jewelry purchases, even apartment rent in Manhattan. Every dollar spent on maintaining relationships with women whose names appeared in neat handwriting on attached receipts. But the worst discovery was in the bottom folder. Photographs. Robert with various women in intimate settings. Hotel rooms, vacation destinations, private dinners. Some faces she recognized from their social circle, wives of his business partners, members of their country club. Others were strangers, young enough to be his daughters. The final envelope contained something that made her blood freeze. Divorce papers. Already drawn up, already signed by Robert, dated just 2 weeks ago. Papers that would leave her with almost nothing, claiming adultery on her part, mental instability, anything that would protect his assets and reputation. He'd been planning to discard her like outdated furniture. Monica sat back in Robert's leather chair, documents spread across his desk like evidence in a criminal trial. 20 years of marriage reduced to proof of systematic deception, cruelty, and betrayal. She'd loved this man, trusted him, rebuilt her entire identity around being his wife. And he'd been planning her destruction while she served him dinner every night. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside the study. Monica's hands flew to the documents, shoving them back into folders, closing the safe, repositioning the painting. The door handle turned just as she settled into the chair behind his desk, phone in hand as if she'd been checking messages. But the person who entered wasn't Robert. Mrs. Sinclair? James Morrison, Robert's business partner, stepped into the room, his expression concerned. Are you all right? You left rather suddenly, and Robert seemed. James had been coming to their home for years, a quiet man who handled the financial side of Robert's business while Robert played the charming frontman. Monica had always liked him. He treated her with respect, remembered her birthday, asked genuine questions about her life. Now she looked at him through different eyes. Had he known about Robert's affairs? About the secret accounts, the planned divorce, the years of lies? If you discovered your partner's biggest lie, what would your first move be? Strategy or emotion? Tell me below because Monica's next decision changed everything. The footsteps in the hallway grew louder, and Robert's voice boomed from downstairs. Has anyone seen Monica? James's eyes met hers across the desk, and she realized he knew exactly what she'd been doing, and why. The guest who caught her wasn't Robert, it was someone who'd been watching her marriage crumble for years. James Morrison closed the study door behind him and leaned against it, his usually composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. At 45, he was 5 years younger than Robert but carried himself with quiet confidence that didn't need expensive suits or loud declarations to command respect. "I know what you found," he said quietly, nodding toward the safe behind the painting. Monica's chest tightened. "I don't know what you mean." "Monica." James stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "I've been Robert's business partner for 8 years. I handle his finances, remember? I know about the separate accounts, the unexplained expenses, the medical records he asked me to store for him." The admission hit her like a physical blow. "You knew? All this time, you knew what he was doing to me?" James ran his hands through his dark hair, frustration clear on his face. "I suspected. But suspecting and knowing are different things. Robert's good at compartmentalizing his life, keeping people in separate boxes. Until recently, I thought maybe. Maybe what? That I was stupid enough not to notice? No." His voice was sharp now, defensive. "That maybe he'd change. That maybe seeing you hurt would eventually wake him up." Monica stood from the desk chair, anger giving her strength. "Wake him up? James, he's been planning to divorce me while blaming me for adultery I never committed. He spent our money on women who think he's single. He's let me believe for 5 years that I was broken, defective, unable to give him children. I know." The words came out like a confession. "Monica, I know, and I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. Why didn't you?" James was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the lamplight. "Because I was afraid of what you'd do with the information. And because..." He paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. "Because I was afraid of how I felt about you." The admission hung in the air between them like a live wire. Monica felt her breath catch, not from shock but from recognition. Those moments when James had lingered after business meetings, asking about her day. The way he remembered her preferences for coffee, her favorite flowers, the books she mentioned reading. The gentle respect he'd always shown her, so different from Robert's casual dismissal. "James. I'm not proud of it," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're married to my business partner. But watching him treat you like you don't matter, seeing you shrink a little more each time I visit. Monica, you deserve so much better than what he's giving you." Footsteps approached the study door. James moved quickly, positioning himself near the bookshelf as if he'd been browsing Robert's collection. Monica grabbed a tissue from the desk, dabbing at her eyes to explain any redness. The door opened and Robert appeared, his face flushed from champagne and the effort of entertaining guests while worrying about his missing wife. "There you are," he said, his tone carrying mild irritation. "People are asking about you." "James, I thought you were getting another drink." "Just admiring your book collection," James replied smoothly. "Your wife was telling me about some of the classics you have here." Robert barely glanced at Monica. "Well, the party's winding down. Time to play the gracious hosts. Have you ever found an unexpected ally in your darkest moment? Someone who saw the truth you were trying to hide? Share your story below because Monica's about to make a choice that changes everything." As Robert turned to leave, expecting them to follow, James caught Monica's eye. The look that passed between them wasn't about attraction or romance. It was about alliance, understanding, and the shared knowledge that some secrets were too dangerous to bear alone. Monica had entered the study looking for evidence to protect herself in a divorce. She was leaving with something far more powerful, a partner who knew the truth and was ready to help her fight. She woke up in the guest room, still wearing her party dress, with a plan that would either liberate her or destroy her. Sunlight streamed through the Connecticut snow, turning their perfectly manicured lawn into a winter postcard. Monica lay still for a moment, letting the events of the previous night settle in her mind like sediment in disturbed water. The humiliation. The safe. The documents. James's unexpected confession. And Robert, snoring peacefully in their master bedroom down the hall, completely unaware that his carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Monica's phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Coffee at Murphy's Diner on Route 1. 1 hour. We need to talk. J. She deleted the message immediately. The shower in the guest bathroom was smaller than the one in the master suite, but the hot water felt like absolution, washing away the residue of 20 years of lies. As she dressed in jeans and a sweater, clothes that felt more authentic than any designer gown, Monica caught herself remembering. Miami Beach, 2003. She'd been 28, working as an accountant for a small firm, taking a rare vacation with her college roommate. Robert was 48 then, silver threading through his dark hair, successful enough to own a yacht but not so wealthy that he'd forgotten how to laugh at himself. He'd approached her at a beachside restaurant, not with a pickup line but with a genuine compliment about the book she was reading, a mystery novel she'd grabbed at the airport. They'd talked until the restaurant closed, about books and dreams and the way ocean waves sounded like whispered secrets. That first night, he'd kissed her under a sky full of stars, his hands gentle on her face, his mouth soft and patient. I want to know everything about you, he'd whispered against her lips. Every story, every dream, every fear. For 6 months, he'd kept that promise. Phone calls that lasted hours. Weekend trips to places she'd only seen in magazines. He'd listened to her stories about growing up in Atlanta with a single mother who cleaned office buildings at night and sold insurance during the day. He'd told her about building his first real estate empire from nothing, about the loneliness of success without someone to share it. Marry me, he'd said on Christmas Eve that year, presenting a ring that wasn't the biggest she'd ever seen but was chosen with care. Not because you need me, but because I need you to remind me who I used to be. She'd said yes because she believed him. Because the man who noticed her choice in books, who remembered that she liked her coffee with cream but no sugar, who called her mother every Sunday just to chat, that man seemed incapable of the cruelty she'd witnessed last night. But people change. Or maybe they just get comfortable enough to show who they really are. Monica made coffee in the kitchen where she'd served breakfast to countless guests, where she'd planned dinner parties and charity events, where she'd cried over negative pregnancy tests that she now knew were inevitable. The familiar routine felt different now, like performing tasks in someone else's house. Robert appeared in the doorway, showered and dressed for work, checking his phone with the casual attention he'd once reserved for her. Good party last night, he said without looking up. The Hendersons are interested in the Stamford property. I might have dinner with them tomorrow to discuss details. Monica studied her husband's face, looking for any sign that he remembered humiliating her, that he'd noticed her absence during the party's final hour, that he cared enough to ask why she'd slept in the guest room. Nothing. His attention was already on the day ahead, on profits and deals and maintaining the image that mattered more than the woman who'd helped him build it. What would you do if someone you loved became a stranger while you weren't looking? When did you realize the person you married no longer existed? Share your thoughts below because Monica's about to discover something that changes everything. The pregnancy test in her bathroom drawer had been sitting there for 3 days, waiting for courage she didn't know she possessed. After 5 years of Robert blaming her for their childlessness, Monica now held proof that would rewrite everything they thought they knew about their marriage. 2 pink lines. Clear as daylight. Impossible as snow in summer. And absolutely, definitely not Robert's. The baby growing inside her was proof of everything Robert couldn't give, and everything he'd lied about. Monica stared at the pregnancy test until the pink lines blurred with tears she refused to shed. 5 years of doctor's appointments, hormone treatments, and Robert's constant blame had convinced her that motherhood would never happen. Now she knew the truth, it was never her fault. 3 months ago, she'd accompanied Robert to a business conference in Boston. He'd insisted she come along for appearances, to play the supportive wife at networking dinners and cocktail parties. What he hadn't expected was for James to be there too, handling the financial presentations while Robert charmed potential investors. The conference hotel had been one of those modern places with floor-to-ceiling windows and marble everything. Monica had felt out of place among the power suits and practiced handshakes, so she'd escaped to the hotel bar after the welcome dinner. She'd been nursing a glass of wine and reading on her phone when James found her. "Mind if I join you?" he'd asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from her small table. "Rough night of networking," she'd replied, grateful for friendly company. "The worst. I'm much better with numbers than small talk." James had ordered a scotch and actually looked at her when he spoke, something Robert had stopped doing years ago. "What about you? This can't be your idea of a fun evening." "Honestly? I'd rather be home reading a book." They'd talked until the bar closed. Real conversation, not the surface-level chatter she was used to at Robert's business events. James asked about her childhood in Atlanta, her mother's struggles as a single parent, her abandoned dreams of becoming a teacher before she'd gotten swept up in Robert's world. "You could still teach," he'd said as they walked toward the elevators. "It's not too late to go back to what makes you happy. Robert thinks teaching is beneath us now. Says it doesn't fit our social position." James had stopped walking. "Monica, what you want matters. Your happiness matters." The elevator doors opened on the 15th floor where both their rooms were located. Monica's keycard had malfunctioned, refusing to open her door no matter how many times she swiped it. James had offered to call the front desk, but the hour was late and Monica was tired of feeling helpless. "I'll just sleep on the couch in Robert's suite," she'd said, but they both knew Robert was 3 floors up in the penthouse, probably passed out from too much celebration drinking. "Stay in my room tonight," James had offered quietly. "I'll take the couch." But she hadn't let him take the couch. The memory made Monica's cheeks warm even now, 3 months later. She'd never cheated on Robert before, never even considered it despite his neglect and cruelty. But that night in Boston, she'd felt like herself for the first time in years. Not Robert's wife or someone's plus one, just Monica, a woman who deserved to be wanted. James had been gentle, patient, treating her body like something precious instead of something he was entitled to. His hands had explored her skin with reverence, asking permission with every touch. When she'd hesitated, overwhelmed by guilt and desire, he'd stopped. "We don't have to do anything you're not sure about," he'd whispered against her forehead. But she'd been sure. For the first time in her marriage, she'd been completely, totally sure. Afterward, they'd lain in the dark talking about dreams they'd both buried, hopes they'd both abandoned. James had traced patterns on her bare shoulder and told her about his daughter from his first marriage, how divorce had taught him the difference between settling and choosing. "You deserve to be chosen, Monica," he'd said. "Not settled for." The next morning had brought reality crashing back. Robert's confused anger when he couldn't find her. The awkward business breakfast where she and James could barely look at each other. The flight home where she'd sat next to her husband, guilt eating at her stomach while she replayed every moment of the night before. She'd told herself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, something that would never happen again. But her body had betrayed her, creating life from that one night of feeling truly alive. Now, staring at the positive pregnancy test, Monica felt a fierce protectiveness surge through her chest. This baby wasn't Robert's consolation prize or his genetic legacy. This child was proof that she wasn't broken, wasn't defective, wasn't the problem in their marriage. Have you ever discovered that the thing you thought was impossible was actually just being prevented by someone else's lies? When did you realize your dreams were still achievable? Tell me in the comments because Monica's about to make a choice that splits her world in half. The sound of Robert's car starting in the driveway broke through her thoughts. He was leaving for work, probably meeting Jennifer or Lisa or whoever was occupying his attention this week. Monica had maybe 8 hours before he came home, 8 hours to decide what to do with the most important secret of her life. She needed to tell James. But first, she needed to figure out if she was ready to burn down everything she'd built for the chance to build something real. She let him believe the baby was his for exactly 72 hours, long enough to watch him plan a future built on lies. Monica told Robert about the pregnancy on Thursday evening, choosing the moment carefully. He'd just finished dinner, wine making him relaxed and talkative, bragging about a new development project in Westchester. She'd placed the pregnancy test next to his coffee cup without a word. The transformation was instant. Robert's face shifted from confusion to shock to pure joy in the span of seconds. He'd swept her into his arms, spinning her around the kitchen like they were newlyweds again, tears streaming down his cheeks. Monica, my God, finally. After all these years, finally. She'd let him believe it. Let him call his mother with the news. Let him start planning nursery renovations and discussing baby names over breakfast. For 3 days, she watched her husband become the man she'd fallen in love with in Miami, attentive, affectionate, treating her like she was carrying the most precious cargo in the world. It was nauseating. "I've been thinking," Robert said Friday morning, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "We should buy that house in Greenwich Village. The one with the garden. Children need space to play." Monica sipped her tea and nodded, watching him plan their future while she calculated how many lies he was telling. He'd cancelled his usual Thursday night business meeting, which she now knew meant time with Jennifer. He'd brought home flowers, something he hadn't done in 2 years. He'd even suggested a weekend getaway to celebrate. "Just the two of us," he'd said, kissing her forehead. "Before life gets complicated." But life was already complicated. Because while Robert was planning their baby moon, James had been texting. "We need to talk about Boston," his first message had said. "I know what you're going through," read the second. "I'm here when you're ready," said the third. Monica had deleted each message, but she couldn't delete the memory of his hands on her skin, his voice whispering her name like a prayer. She couldn't forget the way he'd looked at her that night, not like Robert's wife or a social accessory, but like a woman worth knowing. By Saturday, the guilt was killing her. She found Robert in his study, reviewing contracts with reading glasses perched on his nose. The same room where she discovered his affairs, where James had confessed his feelings, where her marriage had officially ended even though neither of them had said the words yet. "Robert, we need to talk." He looked up, smiling that indulgent smile he'd been wearing since Thursday. "What is it, sweetheart? Morning sickness bothering you?" "I need to tell you something about the baby." His smile faltered slightly. "Is everything okay? Is something wrong?" Monica sat in the chair across from his desk, the same position she'd been in when James had found her 3 days ago. "The baby isn't yours." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that couldn't be put out. Robert's face went through the same progression of emotions as Thursday night, but in reverse: joy to shock to confusion to something darker. "What do you mean it's not mine?" "I mean you're sterile, Robert. You have been for years. You've known it, and you've let me believe I was the problem." His hands began to shake. "Monica, what are you talking about?" "The doctors said. I found your medical records. The real ones. In your safe, behind the painting you think I don't know about." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Robert's face had gone pale, then red, then pale again. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Whose is it?" Monica met his eyes steadily. "Someone who treats me like I matter." What would you do if 20 years of lies collapsed in one conversation? How do you rebuild when everything you believed was built on deception? Share your thoughts below because Robert's reaction is about to change everything. Robert stood slowly, his chair rolling backward into the bookshelf. His hands were clenched into fists, and for the first time in their marriage, Monica wondered if he might actually hit her. Instead, he walked to the window overlooking their perfect lawn and spoke without turning around. "Get out. Family reunions are dangerous when your family doesn't know you're carrying someone else's child." Monica packed a single suitcase while Robert made phone calls in his study, his voice carrying through the house in angry bursts. She could hear him rescheduling meetings, canceling their planned weekend away, probably calling his lawyer. The man who'd been spinning her around the kitchen 3 days ago was now treating her like an enemy combatant. She'd expected anger. She'd prepared for accusations and threats. What she hadn't anticipated was how quickly Robert would shift into damage control mode, protecting his reputation even before processing the emotional impact. Her phone buzzed. "James. Where are you?" his text read. "Packing," she replied. "Come to my place. We need to figure this out together." But before Monica could respond, the front door slammed open and Robert's sister Sarah burst into the foyer, still wearing her hospital scrubs from her nursing shift. "Monica. I just heard the news from Robert's mother. I can't believe you're finally pregnant." Sarah had always been the only member of Robert's family who treated Monica like an actual person instead of a social experiment. 7 years younger than Robert, she'd inherited none of his need for status or control. She worked as a pediatric nurse, lived in a modest apartment in Hartford, and called her brother out on his nonsense more than anyone else dared. "Sarah," Monica started, but her sister-in-law was already pulling her into a tight hug. "This is incredible. After all these years, all those awful doctors telling you there was something wrong." Sarah pulled back, studying Monica's face. "Wait. Why do you look like someone died? And why is there a suitcase by the stairs?" Before Monica could answer, Robert appeared from his study, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Sarah, this isn't a good time." "Robert, what's going on?" "Mom called me crying happy tears about finally getting a grandchild, and now I walk into what looks like a divorce scene." Brother and sister stared at each other across the marble foyer. Monica could practically see Robert calculating how much to reveal, how to spin the situation to maintain maximum control. "Monica has something to tell you," he said coldly. "About the baby." Sarah looked between them, her nursing instincts clearly sensing crisis. "Okay, everyone sit down. Whatever this is, we're going to handle it like adults." They ended up in the living room, Monica and Sarah on the cream-colored sofa that had cost more than some people's cars, Robert pacing by the fireplace like a caged animal. "The baby isn't Robert's," Monica said simply. Sarah's face went blank. "What?" "Robert is sterile. Has been for years. He knew it, and he let me blame myself for our infertility problems." "That's not," Sarah started, then stopped. Monica watched understanding dawn across her sister-in-law's features. "Oh my God. Robert, is this true?" "That's not the point," Robert snapped. "The point is she cheated on me." "The point," Monica said, standing up, "is that your brother has been lying to everyone for years. About his fertility, about his affairs, about who he really is behind all the expensive suits and charity donations." Sarah looked at her brother with something Monica had never seen before, disgust. "You knew you couldn't have children and you let her go through years of medical procedures? You let her think she was broken?" "Sarah, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're exactly like Dad." The comparison hit Robert like a physical blow. Their father had been a controlling man who demanded perfection from his family while hiding his own failures. Robert had spent his adult life proving he was different, better, more successful. "Don't," he warned. "Don't what?" "Tell the truth. Mom's going to be devastated when she finds out her precious son is a fraud." Monica watched the siblings face off, years of family dynamics playing out in real time. Sarah had always been the truth-teller in a family that preferred beautiful lies. Have you ever watched a family implode when secrets finally came to light? How do you tell the people you love that everything they believed was a lie? Comment below because what Sarah says next changes everything. "Monica," Sarah said, turning away from her brother entirely, "whose baby is it?" "Someone who sees me as more than a social accessory." Sarah nodded slowly, then stood up and grabbed Monica's suitcase from the foyer. "Come on. You're staying with me until we figure this out." "And Robert?" She turned back to her brother. "You call Mom and Dad and tell them the truth, or I will." Truth has a way of demanding its moment, even when you're not ready to speak it. Sarah's apartment was everything Robert's house wasn't: small, cluttered, warm, and real. Pictures covered every surface, not the professionally staged photographs that decorated Monica's Connecticut home, but actual memories. Sarah with her nursing school friends, family barbecues, candid shots of people laughing. "Tea or wine?" Sarah asked, bustling around her tiny kitchen. "Tea. The baby, remember?" "Right. God, I still can't believe." Sarah stopped, studying Monica's face. Are you happy about it? The pregnancy? It was the first time anyone had asked her that question. Not whether Robert was thrilled, not whether they'd been trying, but whether she wanted this baby. Yes, Monica said, and realized she meant it completely. Terrified, but happy. Good. That's what matters. Sarah handed her a steaming mug and curled up in the opposite corner of her worn couch. Now tell me about him. Him? The father. The man who makes you smile when you mention him, even in the middle of all this chaos. Monica felt heat rise in her cheeks. It's complicated. Honey, you're pregnant with another man's baby while married to my emotionally abusive brother. We're way past complicated. The blunt assessment made Monica laugh despite everything. Sarah had always been direct, but hearing someone else call Robert's behavior abuse felt validating and terrifying at the same time. His name is James. He's Robert's business partner. Sarah nearly choked on her tea. Monica. You didn't. It wasn't planned. It just happened. One night in Boston, at a conference. I'd never cheated before, never even thought about it seriously. But? Monica stared into her tea, watching steam rise like her old life dissolving. He listened to me. Really listened. Asked about my dreams, my thoughts, what I wanted for my future. When was the last time Robert did that? Probably never. James made me remember who I used to be before I became Mrs. Robert Sinclair. Before I started measuring my worth by how well I could host dinner parties and smile at people who didn't respect me. Sarah reached across the couch and squeezed Monica's hand. What happened that night? The memory came flooding back, the hotel bar, the broken keycard, the choice to follow desire instead of duty. But more than the physical intimacy, Monica remembered the emotional connection. He touched me like I was precious, she said quietly. Like my pleasure mattered as much as his. Robert treats intimacy like another business transaction. Get in, get what you need, move on to the next item on your schedule. And James? James worshipped my body like it was a temple, not a service he was entitled to. He whispered my name like it was sacred, not like he was checking off a marital obligation. Monica's cheeks burned, but she continued. We talked until sunrise about everything. Books, dreams, fears I'd never shared with anyone. And when I fell asleep in his arms, I felt safe for the first time in years. Do you love him? The question hung in the air like morning mist. Monica had been avoiding it, focusing on the practicalities of pregnancy and divorce instead of examining her heart. I think I do. But I'm scared to trust it. What if I'm just rebounding from Robert's neglect? What if I'm confusing gratitude with love? Monica, look at me. Sarah's voice was firm. You've been married to my brother for 20 years. You know the difference between someone who cares about you and someone who owns you. Trust your instincts. Monica's phone buzzed. James again. I need to know you're safe, his message read. Robert called me, said some things. I'm worried. What kind of things? Monica texted back. Threats. Business threats. He's trying to destroy our partnership because of us. Monica's stomach dropped. She'd known Robert would be angry, but she hadn't considered how he might retaliate against James. When was the last time someone's love cost them something important? Have you ever had to choose between safety and authenticity? Share your story because Monica's about to make a decision that changes everything. Sarah, I need to go see him. James? Robert's going to try to destroy him. I can't let that happen. Sarah studied her sister-in-law's face, seeing determination replacing doubt. Then go. But Monica? Whatever happens, don't let Robert make you believe you're the villain in this story. You chose love over lies. That's not a crime, that's courage. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed, especially when your husband finds you with the father of your child. Monica found James in his downtown office at nearly midnight, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by legal documents and coffee cups. His law firm occupied the 15th floor of a glass building that looked out over the city lights, a view that should have been beautiful but felt ominous tonight. "You shouldn't be here," he said when she appeared in his doorway, but his relief was obvious. "Robert's been calling lawyers all day. He's trying to freeze our business assets, claiming I've been embezzling funds to pay for hotel rooms. That's ridiculous. You can prove." "Monica." James stood, moving around his desk toward her. "It doesn't matter what I can prove. Robert has connections, influence, money. He can make accusations stick long enough to destroy my reputation." She studied his face in the harsh fluorescent light. James looked exhausted, older than his 45 years, like he'd been carrying weight he wasn't built for. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for you to pay for my choices." "Our choices," he corrected, reaching for her hands. "What happened between us wasn't just your decision." The moment his fingers touched hers, Monica felt the same electric connection that had started everything 3 months ago. Despite the circumstances, despite the fear and anger and uncertainty, her body responded to his presence like a flower turning toward sunlight. "James, I need you to know something. That you're pregnant." His smile was soft, wondering. "I figured it out when Robert started making threats about paternity tests and bastard children. How do you feel about it?" Instead of answering, James cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "How do I feel about the woman I love carrying our child? Terrified and thrilled and grateful all at once." "You love me?" "I've loved you for years, Monica. Long before Boston, long before I had any right to. Watching you dim yourself to make Robert comfortable, seeing you apologize for taking up space in your own home, it was torture." Before she could respond, the office door slammed open. Robert stood silhouetted in the hallway light, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, looking every one of his 68 years. "I knew I'd find you here." Monica stepped back from James instinctively, but he caught her hand, keeping her close. The gesture wasn't possessive, it was protective. "Robert," James said evenly. "It's late. We can discuss business matters tomorrow." "Business?" Robert laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. "Is that what you call screwing my wife?" "Robert, please," Monica started. "Shut up." His voice cracked like a whip. 20 years I gave you everything. A home, status, respect. I made you somebody in this town, took you from that pathetic little apartment in Atlanta and gave you a life most women only dream about. You gave me a prison with expensive furniture," Monica shot back, finding her voice. "You gave me loneliness in designer clothes. And this is how you repay me? By spreading your legs for my business partner?" James stepped forward, his usual calm composure cracking. "That's enough." "Is it?" Robert moved into the office, closing the door behind him. "Because I don't think it's nearly enough. You want to know what enough looks like?" He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something with deliberate slowness. "Enough looks like every major contractor in Connecticut knowing that James Morrison can't be trusted with other men's wives. Enough looks like every bank in the tri-state area questioning his business ethics. Enough looks like destroying his career so completely that he'll never work in real estate again." Monica felt ice in her veins. "Robert, you can't. I can do whatever I want. I built this industry in Connecticut. I made the connections, earned the respect, created the reputation that lets parasites like him profit from my success." James's jaw was tight, but his voice remained steady. "Go ahead, Robert. Destroy me if it makes you feel better. But it won't change what happened between Monica and me, and it won't make her love you again. What would you do if someone threatened to destroy the person you loved because they chose you? How far would you go to protect someone who risked everything for your happiness? Tell me in the comments, because what Monica does next changes everything." Robert's face went dark with rage, and for a moment Monica thought he might actually try to hit James. Instead, he turned his fury on her. "You think he loves you? He's using you to get back at me for years of playing second fiddle. The moment this novelty wears off, he'll dump you and move on to the next lonely housewife. You're wrong, Monica said quietly. Am I? Ask him what happens when you're not the forbidden fruit anymore. Ask him if he's ready to support you and a baby on a junior partner's salary. But as Robert spoke, Monica realized something that made her smile for the first time in days. It didn't matter what he threatened, what he destroyed, or what he took away. She'd rather be broke and loved than rich and ignored. And judging by the way James squeezed her hand, he felt exactly the same way. Divorce negotiations are different when you hold evidence of federal crimes. The law office smelled like leather chairs and old money, the kind of place where Connecticut's elite came to handle their messy personal business behind closed doors. Monica sat between her attorney and James, facing Robert and his team of lawyers across a mahogany table that probably cost more than most people's cars. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation in James's office. 3 weeks of Robert's threatened business destruction, leaked stories to society magazines, and attempts to freeze bank accounts. But Robert had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how much evidence Monica had gathered. My client is prepared to be reasonable, Robert's lead attorney began, shuffling through papers with practiced efficiency. Mrs. Sinclair can keep the house in Hartford, a reasonable monthly allowance, and $50,000 in cash. In exchange, she agrees never to discuss the circumstances of the divorce publicly. Monica's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen whom Sarah had recommended, didn't even look up from her notes. Counteroffer, Patricia said calmly. Mrs. Sinclair keeps the Greenwich house, the vacation property in Martha's Vineyard, 60% of all assets, full child support, and legal custody of the baby. In exchange, she doesn't turn over evidence of your client's tax evasion to the IRS. The silence in the room was deafening. Robert's face went from confident to confused to pale in the span of seconds. What evidence? His attorney asked. Patricia slid a folder across the table. The offshore accounts your client has been using to hide income from his real estate deals. The falsified expense reports claiming personal vacations as business trips. The cash payments to contractors that never appeared on official records. Monica watched Robert's hands shake as he opened the folder. She'd spent weeks organizing everything she'd found in his safe, creating a paper trail that would make any federal prosecutor salivate. Where did you get this? Robert whispered. From your home office, Monica replied evenly. The same place I found evidence of your affairs, your sterility records, and the divorce papers you'd already prepared. James reached over and squeezed her hand under the table. They'd worked together to organize the evidence, spending long evenings at his apartment going through documents while planning their future. Those nights had been more intimate than any physical encounter. Building trust through shared purpose, creating partnership through common goals. This is blackmail, Robert's attorney said. This is negotiation, Patricia corrected. Your client committed crimes. My client is offering him a choice, fair divorce terms or federal prosecution. Robert stared across the table at the woman he'd been married to for 20 years, seeming to see her clearly for the first time. The meek Southern girl who'd never questioned his decisions was gone, replaced by someone who'd learned to fight for herself. You've changed, he said quietly. No, Monica replied. I just stopped pretending to be smaller than I am. The negotiation stretched on for hours. Robert's team tried various tactics, claiming emotional distress, questioning the evidence's legality, even suggesting Monica was mentally unstable due to pregnancy hormones. But Patricia shut down each attempt with facts, documentation, and the quiet threat of criminal prosecution. By afternoon, they had a preliminary agreement. Monica would get the security she needed to raise her child, James would keep his business partnership intact, and Robert would avoid prison time. But the victory felt hollow until Robert made one final demand. I want a paternity test, he said. If there's any chance the baby is mine. It's not, Monica said firmly. Prove it. Have you ever had to prove a truth that everyone already knew just to satisfy someone's ego? When has spite disguised itself as hope in your life? Share your thoughts because Monica's answer surprised everyone in that room. Fine, Monica said, her voice steady as stone. But when it confirms what we all know, I want something in return. What? An apology. In writing. To me, to James, and to your sister. For 20 years of lies, manipulation, and emotional abuse. Robert's lawyers looked horrified, but Monica wasn't finished. And Robert? When that paternity test proves you've been sterile all along, you're going to pay for every medical procedure you put me through. Every hormone treatment, every painful test, every doctor who made me feel defective because you were too proud to admit the truth. The room fell silent. Outside the windows, Hartford bustled with afternoon traffic, people living their normal lives while Monica rewrote the rules of hers. Deal, Robert said finally, his voice barely audible. Freedom always costs something, the question is whether you're willing to pay the price. The DNA results arrived on a Thursday morning via certified mail, delivered to both Monica's new apartment and Robert's lawyer's office simultaneously. Monica held the envelope in her hands for 10 minutes before opening it, not because she doubted the contents, but because she knew this piece of paper would officially end her old life forever. Zero probability of paternity. 3 words that confirmed what everyone already knew but Robert had refused to accept. Monica was 7 months pregnant now, her belly round and obvious under the simple sweater she wore. The expensive designer clothes from her Connecticut closet hung unworn in Sarah's spare bedroom, replaced by comfortable jeans and soft fabrics that didn't feel like costumes. James found her on the couch, test results still in her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. Hey, he said softly, settling beside her. What's wrong? We knew what it would say. I'm not sad, Monica whispered. I'm just relieved. For 7 months I've been carrying this fear that somehow, some way, Robert might have a legal claim to our baby. Our baby. James's voice was filled with wonder every time he said those words. How does it feel to finally have it in writing? Like I can breathe for the first time in years. James had been incredible throughout the divorce proceedings. Patient when Monica's emotions swung wildly due to pregnancy hormones. Supportive when she doubted her decisions. Strong enough to weather Robert's professional attacks without retaliating. Robert had tried to destroy James's reputation, spreading rumors about unethical business practices and financial impropriety. Several major clients had pulled their contracts, and 3 potential deals had fallen through due to concerns about character. But James had responded by starting his own firm, taking his expertise and integrity elsewhere. Monica watched him work 18-hour days, building something new from nothing, refusing to let Robert's vindictiveness break his spirit. Are you scared? Monica asked, placing his hand on her belly where their daughter was currently practicing what felt like martial arts. Terrified, James admitted. But the good kind of scared. The kind that means something important is happening. They'd decided to live simply. No mansion in Greenwich, no country club memberships, no social climbing through charity events. Instead, they'd rented a small house in West Hartford with a garden where they could plant vegetables and a front porch where they could drink coffee in the mornings. Monica had gone back to school, pursuing the teaching degree she'd abandoned 20 years ago. At 38, she was older than most of her classmates, but pregnancy had given her a new perspective on education and childhood development. She wanted to work with kids who came from backgrounds like hers, single-parent homes, financial struggles, big dreams but limited resources. I got the job, she told James that evening, showing him the acceptance letter from Hartford Elementary School. 3rd grade, starting in the fall. Right after the baby's born. Sarah's going to help with childcare during the day. And you'll be working from home more once your firm gets established. James pulled her closer on their second-hand couch, his arms wrapping around her growing belly. Are you sure about this? The salary's not exactly what you were used to with Robert. Monica thought about the designer clothes gathering dust, the country club lunches that had felt more like business meetings, the charity galas where she'd been decoration rather than participant. James, I spent 20 years living someone else's version of success. I had everything money could buy and none of the things that actually mattered. Like what? Like being seen. Being heard. Being valued for my thoughts instead of my ability to smile and look appropriate. What would you give up to gain your authentic self? When did you realize that rich and miserable was worse than poor and happy? Tell me in the comments, because Monica's about to make another choice that defines her future. The letter from Robert's attorney arrived that afternoon. The written apology she demanded, along with a check covering all her medical expenses from their marriage. But tucked inside was something unexpected, a separate letter, handwritten, addressed to Monica alone. I know I can't undo 20 years of damage, it read. But I want you to know that losing you taught me the difference between owning someone and loving them. Take care of yourself and the baby. You deserve happiness. Robert. Monica stared at the letter for a long time, feeling something she hadn't expected, closure. She gave birth to Freedom at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the baby's first cry sounded like victory. Isabella Grace Morrison entered the world with perfect lungs and her father's stubborn chin, screaming her displeasure at being evicted from her warm, dark home. Monica had labored for 14 hours, James holding her hand through every contraction, Sarah coaching her through every push. She's beautiful, James whispered, tears streaming down his face as the doctor placed their daughter on Monica's chest. She's absolutely perfect. Monica stared down at the tiny face, purple and wrinkled and furious, and felt love so overwhelming it physically hurt. This baby girl would never question her worth, never apologize for taking up space, never settle for being someone's accessory instead of someone's partner. Hello, Isabella, Monica whispered. We've been waiting for you. The recovery room was small and cheerful, decorated with balloons Sarah had brought and flowers from Monica's teaching colleagues. So different from the private suite Robert would have insisted on, with its marble bathroom and room service menu. This felt real, authentic, like the beginning of an actual life instead of an expensive performance. Any regrets? James asked on their second day, watching Monica nurse their daughter with the natural competence that surprised them both. About what? About giving up the mansion, the status, the security Robert offered. Monica looked around their modest hospital room, then at the man who'd chosen love over safety, who'd risked his career to be with her, who treated every moment with their daughter like a miracle. James, look at me. She waited until he met her eyes. I was dying in that mansion. Slowly, quietly, but dying all the same. Every day I stayed married to Robert, I lost another piece of myself. And now? Now I get to discover who I really am. Not Mrs. Robert Sinclair, not the woman who wasn't good enough to give her husband children, not the Southern girl who got lucky and married up. Just Monica, mother, teacher, woman who chose truth over comfort. Isabella made a soft sound against Monica's chest, her tiny fist closing around her mother's finger with surprising strength. What do you think she'll be when she grows up? James asked, stroking his daughter's dark hair. Whatever she wants, Monica said firmly. Doctor, teacher, artist, athlete, businesswoman, anything except someone who shrinks herself to make other people comfortable. The door opened and Sarah appeared with coffee and gossip from the outside world. How are my favorite people? She asked, kissing Monica's forehead and peering at her niece. She's even more beautiful than yesterday. Any word from Robert? Monica asked. He sent flowers to the nurse's station. Didn't try to visit, didn't ask for pictures. Just flowers with a card that said, "Congratulations." Monica felt a surprising rush of gratitude. For all his faults, Robert was respecting the boundaries they'd established. He could have made things difficult, could have tried to insert himself into their joy, but he'd chosen to step back. That was decent of him, James said. People can change, Monica replied. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to figure out what actually matters. They brought Isabella home to a nursery James had painted soft yellow, with white furniture from a consignment shop and handmade decorations Sarah had crafted during Monica's pregnancy. The room was small but filled with love, overlooking the garden where Monica planned to teach their daughter about growing things from seeds. That first night home, as Isabella slept in her crib and James dozed beside Monica in their bed, Monica thought about the Christmas party that had started everything. The humiliation, the anger, the moment she'd decided to stop pretending her marriage was working. 8 months later, she was exactly where she belonged. Have you ever lost everything and realized you'd actually gained your life? When did you discover that your lowest moment was actually your turning point? Share your story because Monica's journey isn't quite finished yet. At 2 a.m., Isabella woke demanding food, and as Monica settled into the rocking chair James had found at a yard sale, she felt something she'd never experienced during her marriage to Robert: complete contentment. Outside, snow began to fall, just like the night everything changed. But this time, Monica wasn't planning anyone's destruction. She was too busy creating something beautiful. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing who gets to live rent-free in your heart. Isabella was 6 months old when Robert asked to meet her. The request came through his attorney, formal and careful, seeking permission for supervised visitation with his former stepdaughter. Monica read the letter 3 times before showing it to James. "What do you think?" she asked, watching him process the idea of Robert entering their daughter's life. "It's your call," James said, though she could see the tension in his jaw. "But whatever you decide, we do it together." They met at a neutral location, a family restaurant in West Hartford where the noise of other children would mask any awkwardness. Monica carried Isabella in her car seat, the baby's dark eyes taking in everything with the alert curiosity of a child discovering the world. Robert was already seated when they arrived, looking older than his 68 years. The past months had changed him. His hair had gone completely gray, his expensive suits replaced by casual clothes that actually fit his personality. He looked less like a real estate mogul and more like a man learning to be human. "Thank you for agreeing to this," he said as they settled into the booth. His eyes went immediately to Isabella, who was gnawing on a teething ring with determined concentration. "She's beautiful, Monica. She looks like you did when we first met." "She looks like herself," Monica replied, but not unkindly. They ordered coffee and made small talk about the weather, the restaurant, anything except the elephant in the room. Finally, Robert cleared his throat. "I've been in therapy," he said. "Twice a week for 6 months. My therapist says I need to make amends, but not for my own healing, for the people I hurt." "Robert. Let me finish. Please." He pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. "I wrote this down because I wanted to get it right." Monica glanced at James, who nodded encouragingly. "Monica, I'm sorry. Not for the divorce, because we both know that marriage was broken long before you met James. I'm sorry for making you believe you were broken. I'm sorry for blaming you for problems I caused. I'm sorry for treating you like an employee instead of a partner, like property instead of a person." Isabella chose that moment to babble loudly, reaching her chubby hands toward the colorful lights hanging above their table. The sound broke the tension, reminding everyone that life had moved forward despite the pain of the past. "I don't expect forgiveness," Robert continued. "I just wanted you to know that losing you taught me the difference between controlling someone and loving them." Monica studied his face, looking for manipulation or hidden agenda. Instead, she saw something she'd never seen during their marriage: genuine remorse. "I forgive you," she said quietly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." Robert's eyes filled with tears. Would it be okay if I held her? Just for a moment?" Monica looked at James, who shrugged. "Your choice." She lifted Isabella from her car seat, the baby immediately curious about this new person with his gentle voice and careful hands. Robert held her like she was made of glass, whispering soft words that made Isabella smile. "She's lucky," he said finally, handing her back to Monica. "She'll grow up knowing what real love looks like." Can you forgive someone who broke your heart if they genuinely change? Is it possible to move forward without carrying the weight of old hurts? Tell me your thoughts, because sometimes the people who hurt us the most can teach us the most about strength. As they prepared to leave, Robert handed Monica an envelope. "For her college fund," he said. "No strings attached. Just, because every child deserves opportunities." Walking to their car, Isabella babbling contentedly in her carrier, Monica felt lighter than she had in months. How do you feel about that? James asked. Free, Monica replied. Finally, completely free. 3 years later, she stood in the same hotel ballroom where Robert had humiliated her, but this time, she was the one being honored, and everyone who mattered was there by choice. The Hartford Education Foundation's annual gala was nothing like the pretentious charity events Monica had attended as Robert's wife. Teachers, parents, school administrators, and community leaders filled the room with genuine laughter and conversation about making a difference in children's lives. Ladies and gentlemen, the foundation president announced from the podium, this year's Teacher of Excellence Award goes to someone who embodies everything we believe about education, that every child deserves to be seen, valued, and encouraged to reach their full potential. Monica Morrison. Monica smoothed her simple black dress, elegant but practical, nothing like the designer gowns that had once defined her, and walked to the stage. The applause was warm and real, coming from people who knew her work, not her husband's bank account. 3 years ago, she began, looking out at the audience, I thought my life was over. I just left a 20-year marriage, I was pregnant and scared, and I had no idea how to build a future for myself and my daughter. In the audience, James smiled encouragingly while 3-year-old Isabella colored quietly in a coloring book, her dark curls exactly like Monica's had been at that age. What I learned is that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing, if you're brave enough to see it that way. Losing everything I thought I wanted gave me space to discover what I actually needed. Monica's eyes found familiar faces in the crowd. Sarah, now head of pediatric nursing at Hartford Hospital. James's parents, who'd embraced her and Isabella from day one. Her mother, who'd flown in from Atlanta looking proud enough to burst. And in the back corner, almost hidden behind a pillar, Robert sat alone. He'd remarried 6 months ago, a woman his own age who ran her own successful consulting business and didn't need his money or status to define her worth. From what Sarah reported, they seemed genuinely happy, built on mutual respect rather than power dynamics. The children I teach come from all kinds of families, Monica continued. Some have 2 parents, some have 1, some live with grandparents or foster families. But they all have one thing in common, they deserve adults who believe in their potential, who see their strengths before their struggles, who understand that every child is somebody's miracle. Isabella looked up from her coloring book and waved at her mother on stage, causing ripples of laughter through the audience. My daughter will grow up knowing that she's valued for who she is, not what she can do for other people. That she has the right to take up space, to speak her mind, to choose love over security every single time. The speech earned a standing ovation, but Monica barely noticed. As she returned to her table, James stood to hug her, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around like she was precious cargo. I'm proud of you, he whispered in her ear. Every single day, I'm proud to be your partner. That night, after Isabella was tucked into her bed and the babysitter had gone home, Monica and James sat on their back porch drinking wine and watching fireflies dance in their garden. Any regrets? James asked, the same question he'd posed in the hospital 3 years earlier. Monica thought about the question seriously. The mansion in Greenwich now belonged to strangers. The country club membership had expired. The designer clothes had been donated to charity. Her bank account was smaller, her social circle different, her life unrecognizable from what it had been. None, she said firmly. Not a single one. Even when Isabella asks why her parents aren't married? Monica and James had talked about marriage but decided they didn't need legal papers to prove their commitment. They were partners by choice, every single day, not by obligation or social expectation. Especially then. Because I can tell her that her parents chose each other freely, that they stay together because they want to, not because they have to. James reached for her hand in the darkness, their fingers intertwining like they had on that night in Boston when everything began. What would you tell someone who's trapped in a marriage like yours was? He asked. Monica was quiet for a moment, considering. I'd tell them that the most powerful revenge isn't destroying someone who hurt you, it's building a life so beautiful that their absence becomes a gift. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about people who chose truth over comfort, love over security, authenticity over approval. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you discovered your entire life was built on someone else's lies? And remember, you deserve love that sees your worth, not love that demands your silence. The strongest people aren't those who never fall down, they're the ones who get back up and build something better from the pieces. As fireflies blinked like tiny stars in their modest garden, Monica felt something she'd never experienced during 20 years of marble floors and crystal chandeliers. She felt truly, completely home.